Hey guys, it's Karen and I'm here to do my foundation routine, and this has been a video I've wanted to do for a long time, but it's kind of a difficult one for me to do for many reasons. But one of the reasons is I use so many different products, including the way I apply them. So some products I use a beauty blender, some products I use my Real Techniques sponge, others I use my artist brush that I bought recently, and I use so many different foundations, high street and drugstore. But I have narrowed it down to 3 foundations that are my favourites and that I'm going to use going forward, and I talk about those as I start the routine. And the other reason is just because when I get up in the morning, I go into the living room. I've got a routine of doing it in the living room with all my things in my bags around me, and I kind of wait for my painkillers to kick in, sit and have a cup of tea and do it all slowly there. So to come through here and do it straight away was a bit of a shock to the system, but it's fine. It was quite nice to do it and see how it looked myself at each step. You know, it'll be nice to watch back. I think I mentioned at the end, but these curls in my hair, you'll see in the video, I've got my hair, all it is in a headband. So I've got a headband on my hair and my hair wrapped around it, but I have done a whole video. I've done one for loose curls and one for tight curls. I used to do headband curls a lot when I had long hair, so I'll link to those videos for you so you can see how to get this hair, and then I've just clipped a little bit up. It normally looks crazy. It does look crazy a little bit at the minute, which is why I guess I'm touching it, because I'm not used to having it like this. But when it drops, it looks a lot nicer, I think. But some of you will like it like this, I know. But anyway, I have called this a foundation routine for mature, if I've remembered anyway, mature, oily pores and blemishes, because I have got a blemish here and a blemish here that I cover up during the video. I've got large pores all around here that I cover up. I have got oily skin, and I've got mature skin with fine lines around my eyes. Actually, this one looks worse than this side, to be honest. Hey ho. And I've got nose to mouth lines as well. So I've kind of got a mixture of all of those things. This is not, instead of doing a review of the Stila Putty, I am going to do a review on its own of the Stila Putty, because I know that you guys wanted that. So I will do that next for you. This is the steps from primer to the very end, setting powder, and I've also shown you putting on my blush and bronzer and that kind of thing. So if you'd like to see how I do this, then please keep watching. Okay, so I'm going to start by putting on my Dr. Jart BB cream. All I've done so far, I'm just using 2 pumps of this. Start on my cheeks, and I use my fingers, as you can see. The only thing I've done is cleansed my face with my micellar water, and I put some SPF 50 on my neck, because I don't use this BB cream down my neck, I just use it on my face. With a Sultan I might well do, because I said I'd give you dupes all the way through as where I can. There's only one thing I can't, which is I'll talk about it when I get to it, but a dupe for this Dr. Jart BB cream would be the Sultan BB cream. I know that you can't get it in the USA, unfortunately, so I will be on the lookout for a dupe for you guys, because everybody's coming out with a BB cream. And I did have a look at the L'Oreal CC cream the other day, but it doesn't look anywhere near like this. So that's that. Then I'm going to put a bit of primer on, and I'm going to have a sip of my tea actually. The primer I'm using today is a Dior one, and this is the Dior Skin Refining Matte Primer. It's got a pump bottle on it. So I'm just going to use 1 pump, put that on my cheeks, dot on my nose, dot on my head, and a dot on my chin. Now I don't use primer every day, simply because I tend to forget. And also because this is the only one I found that is brilliant, that I'm really like, wow, that's amazing. Well, no, this and the Becca Backlighting Primer, and that one does different things. But this is the only one that I have found when I had oily skin, when I had extremely oily skin, to give some oil control and also to help with pores. That's definitely covered up my pores a little bit. And it's expensive. So for a dupe, the closest is the Rimmel Matte Me, I think it's called. It's not the Fix and Protect, it's the matte one. It's Rimmel Matte something. I will list it for you in the description. So that would be what I would use if I couldn't afford that one. Okay, so that's a nice base. So now onto foundation. Today I'm using the Estee Lauder Double Wear. And this one is in Ecru, and I just bought this yesterday, and I'm using it with the Real Techniques sponge. I would usually use it with a beauty blender actually, but this one gives an almost, the beauty blenders work great with a thick foundation. So if you've got the Kat Von D Tattoo or the Marc Jacobs Remarkable, using them with a beauty blender is what changes how they look. Because if I didn't have a beauty blender or a Real Techniques sponge, this wouldn't be a favourite. I just wouldn't use this with a brush, because whenever I did, it just looked too cakey, and it was only when I discovered using these that I was like, oh, okay, that's a favourite. I didn't imagine this would be a favourite. Let me just put a bit of this on my face. Now, I haven't got the pump bottle on this. I completely forgot to buy one from MAC yesterday, so I'm just going to dot on my forehead, dot there. To really be careful not to overdo it as well, because it is a very high coverage foundation. I do like high coverage, but you know, sometimes even there is too much coverage. Okay, so I'll leave it like that, and I can always add to it. And then I've wet my beauty blender, and I'm not sure which side I use. It's been a while since I've used this actually, so I'm just going to buff it in. If I didn't use Estee Lauder, I've got now 3 foundations that I use that are favourites. But I have now got what I would consider to be normally oily skin, not very oily skin. When I have very oily skin, I would use the YSL Fusion Ink, and what else? YSL Fusion Ink, and the Dior Skin Forever, and the Revlon Colour Stay as a drugstore. So if you've got very, very oily skin, I would suggest trying those, see if you can get a sample of the higher end ones, or try the Revlon Colour Stay. For oily combination skin, make sure you get the right one. And now that my skin is just oily, it's still oily, but it's not very oily. I can probably go until lunchtime without blotting it. I'm going to put a little bit more on. Then it's Estee Lauder Double Wear, but only by using the beauty blender and what? Real Techniques sponge, and Lancome Teint Idole Ultra. That's my other favourite foundation that I would use. And I would use a brush with it, and I would use the Artist 7 brush, or I would use something like the Morphe Flat Top foundation brush, or the Real Techniques buffing brush. Those are the kind of brushes I like to use, but the Artist 7 brush is just, I'm loving that at the moment. I just wanted to get a little bit more coverage on my nose there, but you have to be careful that I can end up with too much and then it can be a bit patchy. There's different parts of this foundation routine that are for the different parts in the title. So there's mature, oily, pore covering. The mature part is to make sure you use a beauty blender if you're using a full coverage foundation. Otherwise, you can see I've got lines around my eyes. It is going to sink into those lines. It is going to show up, you know, your nose to mouth lines, that kind of thing. So use a nice beauty blender or Real Techniques sponge, or use a nice sheer foundation. The bit for oily skin is really to make sure you use a nice primer to mattify, and there's a couple of other steps that I'm doing here as well. And then for pore coverage, that's what we're going to do next. So this is the step that I said I don't have a drugstore dupe yet, but I'm pretty sure I will. So it's the Stila Pore Putty. What does it say it is? Perfectly Poreless Putty Perfector. This is what it looks like. You can see I've used a bit, and I actually do use the sponge that comes in it. This one is in light. This is the sponge, looking quite filthy. I'm going to use that other side. And I just take a bit and press it into my pores, but I do have an alternative if you can't get hold of this. So I'm just pushing that in with a sponge, and I think the sponge is the really great part about it. I don't think this would work with fingers or a brush, or and actually where I've got that blemish, I'll just use that to cover up that blemish as well. And if I have to go over that with mineral powder, I will. I think I will actually. And this is great not only for pore coverage, but for an extra little bit of coverage. Like I still can see a few freckles on my nose, and I know most people don't mind, but I don't like to see them. Okay, so the blemishes are not looking too bad. You can see that I can barely see it, but I am just going to put a little bit of mineral powder on. If those blemishes were still showing, what I would do is put a little bit of this on. This has been my faithful acne cover for years and years and years, and it's just I love it because there are days when I wouldn't have left the house without using this, and it just stays put. I'll show you what it's like. It's so full coverage. That was the tiniest amount, and it just you put that on, put a little bit of mineral powder on top, and you just don't need to worry about it wearing off or coming off. It would just cover my skin for the whole day. So brilliant stuff, and I'll never be without it, because these were pretty horrific when they first appeared. Sorry if I'm going in and out of focus. But then I'd always finish it off with mineral powder, which is pretty good for your skin, and again it would always stick to it and be very good. This brush is just an artist brush. This one says 3 on it, that's all it says. I think it was about £1 from the art shop, from Hobbycraft. That's where I got some brushes. In fact, I can't remember if I think I might have done a video on the brushes from Hobbycraft. So I'm just going to go over that with the mineral powder. And then on there. So I think I gave you a dupe for everything, didn't I? Did I tell you my drugstore foundation that I use instead of Lancome Teint Idole? I'm not sure I did. It was the L'Oreal True Match. This is what I would use if you have slightly oily skin like me. This one is absolutely fantastic, and use it with the artist's brush, or you can use it with the Real Techniques buffing brush, and then the Lancome Teint Idole Ultra if not. But if you've got very, very oily skin, the Revlon Colour Stay, or even the Max Factor, now I can't remember the name of it, Max Factor, like I said, I'll list it below for you. So as the final step, and also the step that you could use if you don't have that Stila Pore Perfecting Putty, is to finish off with a good powder. And a loose powder I feel like is a bit better. I'm just going to shake some of this. This is the Laura Mercier translucent powder. I just bought this yesterday because I had used up my deluxe size, and I've got 2 ways of using this. And what I would use if I didn't have this is this. I absolutely love this. It's the Bourjois Healthy Balance Matte 10-hour powder. You can see I've used quite a lot of this. Absolutely love it. And you can do the same with this. You don't have to buy a loose powder. So I have been using my Real Techniques. Yeah, it is a Real Techniques. I was going to say I keep calling it Real Techniques. It is. See how I've got a bit of powder in there? Dipping that square end in and then pressing it on my face. And it just gives a really nice perfected finish. And sometimes I actually go over it with a brush just to take off any residue. I feel like you do use quite a lot of product this way, but it is a really nice way of applying foundation. But when I paid for this yesterday and got the shock of how much it was, I was like, oh, perhaps I won't use my beauty blender with it all the time, because you do pick up a lot of product, it doesn't last long at all. So the other option I was telling you about is to use a brush and something like this, and you can take it, or a loose powder, any powder really that's kind of aimed at being a setting powder. I take a brush, this is the Wayne Goss number 2, but any kind of fluffy type brush. What would be better actually is a kabuki type brush, and then just really blend it into the pores. This is if you're not using that poreless putty. Really buff it in and spend time on it as opposed to just grazing it. I'm going to go and do my eyes, and then I will come back and do my blush and bronzer and all that, because I wouldn't have considered that part of foundation routine, but I have to say when I've been watching others that it does seem to be part of their foundation routine videos, so I'll include it, why not? And then there's one final step as well for oily skin, so I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so that's makeup done except for bronzer, blusher and highlighter. So I'm going to use my Pro Bronze Fusion, is it called? Pro Bronze Fusion by Makeup Forever, and mine is in 20M, and I'm using an EcoTools brush. And I don't really contour, I just like to add a little bit of colour. The only thing is, I suppose, my colour does tend to mix with my blush, which doesn't always work out well. And then the blush I'm using, very lightly because it has looked a bit patchy, is this. It's called Tiger Lily, and it's the Becca Becca blush. What do they call it? Mineral blush? Becca Luminous blush in Tiger Lily, and I'm using a Makeup Forever wavy brush 150. And like I said, it does, I have noticed it patchy the few times I've worn it, but it's a very bright colour, so obviously I need to be very careful with it. And the colour I'm going to put on top is very similar as well, so for the highlighter. And then the highlighter, I'm just going to rub this on a tissue to get any colour off, is again Becca, and this is the Rose Gold highlighter. Just going to put that up here. I feel like I might need a bit of lip gloss as well. For lip gloss, I'm just putting on some Rimmel Per Glossy Cat, this is called. Love this lip gloss, and I'm not really a lip gloss girl. And then the final step I mentioned is this. This is the Urban Decay All Nighter Setting Spray. And I believe the L'Oreal one is pretty similar. And I don't use this very often because they've normally got alcohol in it. This has. I'm just going to do 3 sprays. But this would just set and help everything stay if you were going out. Like I'll use this on, I'm going to a beauty show in a couple of weeks, and I'll spray this in the morning because there'll be no time to kind of touch up or any of that, you know, but because it's got alcohol in it, I don't like to use it too much. But like I said, the L'Oreal one is another option if you don't want to get the Urban Decay one. So I hope that that was useful. I didn't put any under eye concealer on, by the way. I sometimes forget about it actually, and this morning is one of those times where I don't even know if I used a wipe to wipe anything away. I think as long as I don't have too much fallout, it's when I've got fallout under my eyes and I wipe it away that I end up going back and putting under eye concealer. I'm lucky to not have too many problems under my eyes. So yeah, I hope that was useful for you. Like I said, I'll list everything for you. I'll tell you what I've got on the rest of my face. I have got on, it's a pigment that I've got on my eyes called In the Buff by Bare Minerals, and then on my lips I've got the OCC lip tar, but it's the one in the tube in Structure, I think it's called, and then you saw me just put that gloss on top. My hair, this is my headband curls, if you saw what I was wearing, and I've got a video on how to do my headband curls, so I will insert a link for you in the description as well, or around about here. If you see a little eye above here, then that's normally giving you a link to another video. And earrings are from, now where did I get these from? Oh, Accessorize, they're from Accessorize. And I think that is everything. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you soon.